Hello students and welcome to Multicultural Ministry Session 8. This week we'll be visiting a multicultural church. Last week you had the opportunity to visit your city on a 2-hour walk through your city in search for expressions of interculturalism in your city. Hopefully you found some good things and noticed the way cultures blend or are celebrated or not in your city. But now we're going to take it to the church. And the goal for this week is to visit a church that identifies itself as multicultural and to ask yourself the question, what makes it multicultural? Sometimes we have stated values, but those values that we express are not always espoused. They're not always held and practiced. Um, in other words, we don't always practice what we preach. So the goal this week is to go into those churches that you visit, particularly one church this week, and look for culture or the expression of multicultural ministry. What makes this church multicultural? Culture is such a subtle reality that it's never uh, very obvious. We have to look for it. In order to see it, we have to look for it. Yet it shapes everything we do, even how we think. And so your goal is to look for those expressions of culture in the way that the church service is held, what people do and say, the decor, and things like that. Look to confirm those expressed goals set out by the church. So you're looking for visible aspects of multiculturalism in visible aspects of the church, the building, the structure, the style of the worship service. Then look for how the church is imagined. This may be a little more difficult. When you're looking for how church is imagined, you're looking for those models of the way church is thought of in their minds, those mental models that find their expressions in what people do. So how does the practice of church reveal the way they imagine church experience? If you look close enough and hard enough, you'll begin to see those patterns that kind of tell a story of what they think church is like. In the lesson, I ask, what ways do they imagine kingdom living? And what I'm asking is about proleptic living. In other words, how do they live out their kingdom expectations in the here and now? As we look forward to being with Christ in heaven, how do we anticipate those days in heaven in the here and now? How do we live those things out? And what expressions do you find of that in the church that you visit? Um, what are the social dimensions of within that church? You know, how people gather together, the way cultures come together, genders come together. How is it articulated in their literature, and how is it expressed in the way they live? So you're looking at all kinds of different things. Uh, as you recall, we had various models of convergence. Try to see if you can identify what model of cultural convergence is being employed there. Assimilation, circumstantialism, primordialism, and interculturality. Look for those models of cultural conversion as well. Another question that I asked this week is for you to try to identify how power is used or shared. How is power used or shared among the leaders and members? In high power distance situations, leaders aren't very accessible, not as accessible as they would be in low power distance situations. Also, in low voice situations, people without power are rarely heard. So what is the power distance within that church? Is it a high voice situation or a low voice? High voice meaning that people are heard, doesn't matter where they are, who they are, how much power they have, if they are in the center of the cultural or social situation, or from the margins. In a high voice situations, all voices are heard. Using the power dynamics chart that I send you in the lesson, try to identify what you perceive to be the way that power is used. And there are 4 quadrants. You can choose between those in your assessment. So let us know what you've discovered as you go out and visit your church and how it correlates with the city that you observed last week. If you were invited to do so there at the church, would you modify or make changes there? If you're invited to express what it is you feel, what you discovered, what would you say? And how would you make changes if you were given the opportunity? Well, the reading and the forms this week are centered on Lingenfelter for reading, and Form 8 is about your church visit, so it's particularly asking you about community building. While visiting the church that you visited, it's asking a question of what you observed and why it stood out to you. So I'd like to see some discussion around that, and I look forward to seeing your posts this week. God bless.